Good evening, I'm Adrienne Arsenault.
And I'm Andrew Chang. Tonight, 6 months to the day since CBC News first told you what was happening inside Rideau Hall.
Canada's Governor General resigns.
This is not something that anybody wished on the institution, on the staff that work at Rideau Hall, or on Canadians.
After allegations of verbal abuse and public humiliation, Julie Payette, one of Justin Trudeau's signature appointments, is out.
The gravity of this moment, the politics at play, and what should the government have known? At Issue brings their take.
Also tonight, calls for tighter restrictions in Saskatchewan as a beloved sportscaster dies from COVID-19.
Well, it's a reminder to people that COVID is real.
And a star is born.
But there was always light if only we're brave enough to see it.
How her words echoed here. This is The National. Canada is in uncharted territory. For the first time, a Governor General has resigned in controversy.
Julie Payette quit today after an independent investigation into staff complaints produced some damning results. Now, much of it you have already heard in the exclusive reporting by CBC News' Ashley Burke. Her sources revealed how Payette and her chief of staff would belittle employees, even in public, and how the Governor General's behavior cost taxpayers money.
And not only that, former astronaut Payette was a signature appointment by Justin Trudeau, and now he bears the political cost. We'll get to those politics and to why it's so important what happens next. But first, Ashley Burke has today's shocking news.
The findings of the workplace review are still secret, but the Governor General's resignation quite public.
This report had some disturbing conclusions, and those conversations led the Governor General to conclude that she should offer her resignation.
An unprecedented move in Canadian history. After months of revelations about the toxic workplace at Rideau Hall, Julie Payette issued a statement saying, "I still take these allegations very seriously. We all experience things differently, but we should always strive to do better and be attentive to one another's perceptions. I've come to the conclusion that a new Governor General should be appointed. Canadians deserve stability in these uncertain times." The government received the report last week, and after a thorough review, the Prime Minister spoke to Payette yesterday when she offered to resign.
The conclusions of the report were such that the workplace was clearly a source of concern. And in fact, the clerk of the Privy Council and Privy Council officials will, in the coming weeks, be reaching out directly to staff at Rideau Hall and working with them.
The Prime Minister said today's announcement provides an opportunity for new leadership at Rideau Hall to address the workplace concerns. The Chief Justice of Canada, Richard Wagner, will step in until they find a replacement. All of this set in motion by a CBC report exactly 6 months ago that triggered the review.
There was a lot of crying. I saw colleagues cry.
More than a dozen sources spoke confidentially, claiming that Payette belittled, berated, and publicly humiliated employees. They described lengthy debriefs during flights that reduced staff to tears, meetings that felt like interrogations, and employees being randomly quizzed, asked to name planets in the solar system.
There was always that level of criticism, and I would say in almost every meeting, someone was berated. There was, I'll go as far to say, a victim at every meeting.
Sources also accuse her longtime friend and official secretary, Assunta De Lorenzo, of bullying staff too. Waves of employees left.
This has gone from being one of the most collegial and enjoyable work environments for many of the staff to being a house of horrors. They will bully you until you either agree or leave.
Picked by the Prime Minister but appointed by the Queen, tonight Buckingham Palace said the Queen is aware of today's developments.
Okay, so Ashley, such a big development, due in large part to your reporting and your dozens of sources. What are they saying tonight?
Well, there's a sense of relief. Some told me that they cried when they heard the news. After having had the courage to speak to us about their concerns, they got the outcome they wanted, but never imagined they'd get.
And do we know if the contents of this report will ever be made public?
Well, the government says it contains confidential information and will only be released under the Access to Information Act. Now, that can take months, and the document would likely be heavily redacted, but we have requested a copy.
Okay, Ashley Burke, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions about judgment and the vetting process have dogged Justin Trudeau as the story has developed. David Cochrane on what this means for the Prime Minister.
On the day the Prime Minister announced his pick, Julie Payette looked like a star choice. A scientist, an astronaut. What could go wrong?
From the first moment the idea came up of appointing Ms. Payette to be our next Governor General, it was obvious to me that she would make an extraordinary Governor General.
That may have been the high point. Before Payette officially started, reports emerged of an old assault charge that was later dropped, and a fatal car accident where Payette struck and killed a pedestrian.
The vetting process is deep and extensive and raised absolutely no issues that would prevent her from being Governor General. She will make an extraordinary Governor General.
In selecting Payette, Trudeau abandoned the committee process Stephen Harper used to pick David Johnston for the job. Trudeau's government then let Payette hire her close friend to run Rideau Hall instead of a seasoned public servant. So when it emerged that Payette made life difficult for people in her orbit, it made things difficult for Trudeau. The allegations of a toxic Rideau Hall, followed by revelations Payette left the Montreal Science Centre with a $200,000 severance after employees complained of mistreatment, and that she left the Canadian Olympic Committee after allegations of verbal harassment.
This definitely looks poorly on the Prime Minister, who essentially handpicked the Governor General and curtailed this appointment committee that had been put in place a few years prior by the prior government.
Payette's departure comes during a minority government in what will likely be an election year, a time of political uncertainty during a period of instability in the Governor General's office. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Our chief political correspondent, Rosie Barton, will take us deeper into this. So, Rosie, Buckingham Palace says the Queen is following these developments, characteristically diplomatic phrasing there. Clearly, though, this will not go over very well at all.
No, and this is, after all, the Queen's representative in Canada. There's symbolism in this role. The person is meant to sort of reflect Canadian identity. But I can't overstate how vital this role is to upholding our parliamentary system, democracy. The GG, the Governor General, gives legislation royal assent, so it becomes law. She reads the throne speech. She approves dissolution or prorogation of Parliament, which we have seen is hugely important in the past, particularly for a minority government. She is Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Forces. So without a credible Governor General, someone Canadians can trust and rely on to make the right decisions, our political system could have found itself in serious jeopardy.
And I suppose the other layer to this is that fundamentally we're talking about a boss and employees and a place of work.
Yeah, and I think that's the part Canadians can relate to, you know, people who are feeling abused in their workplace, making complaints, they're not getting listened to, so they go to Ashley Burke at the CBC to try and get some accountability. And no matter what the role, no matter who was in that role, this is about trying to find ways to protect people, even when the person facing these allegations is the Governor General. And that's why we are where we are today.
All right, so I have no doubt at issue we'll have more on this when it convenes a little bit later. Until then, thanks, Rosie.
You bet.
And At Issue convenes in about 15 minutes to talk political lessons, damage done, and what comes next.
Well, let's turn now to the COVID-19 crisis. And 2 weeks after holiday-related spikes, a beginning of a trend in the right direction. All told, Canada reported 5,957 new infections today. That's down from the early January peak. Also encouraging, Canada's 7-day rolling average falling, at least for now, from more than 8,000 to just over 6,000 daily cases. Ontario's numbers, in particular, also down, reporting 2,632 new infections today. That's more than 1,000 fewer than the record set January 10th. Its 7-day average also on the decline, from around 3,700 down to 2,700 cases in the last 2 weeks. But north of Toronto, there is growing concern a COVID-19 variant has played a role in an outbreak sweeping through a long-term care home.
We had upwards of about 55 people becoming ill within 48 hours. If we had vaccine a month before we went in on Saturday, I think this outbreak would be a lot less severe.
Preliminary testing shows a very high probability that a new strain is infecting people at the Roberta Place care home in Barrie. But which variant? Not yet determined. More than 24 people have died there, and nearly every resident, 122 of 130 people, is sick. 69 staff members have also tested positive. Now in Ontario, barely half of long-term care residents, 56%, have been vaccinated. And a provincial science body says lives could have been saved if those residents had been first in line. David Common shows us the findings.
Ontario had enough vaccine in December to immunize all residents of long-term care, but that didn't happen. The government says at first the Pfizer shot couldn't safely be moved into homes, but in other countries and provinces they managed to. Now, according to projections, Ontario's current plan is costing lives. The science table, which advises government, says if all residents had got their first dose by today, 1,600 cases and 305 deaths could have been avoided by the end of March. Lives could still be saved by accelerating from the mid-February deadline.
This one was just, a no-brainer, and we had the supply, we had the ability to do this, we just didn't get it done. And that's why it's a breathtaking failure.
Geriatrician Nathan Stahl is caring for the COVID sick. He's frustrated the Ontario government didn't make care home residents the sole priority for the first vaccines.
They actually put the needles in the wrong arms. They put the needles in the arms of people who were much less likely to die.
That included not just hospital administrators, but staff who aren't as high risk as residents. Palliative care physician Amit Arya is critical that Ontario's vaccine task force didn't include anyone who's ever run a mass vaccination program.
These people have been excluded from these committee. And I mean, this is something that I've said before. The people who are giving the shots should also be the people who are calling the shots.
Ontario's government has received nearly 250,000 doses, 3 times as many as there are care home residents. And some died waiting for the vaccine, including Jennifer Penny's mom, 81-year-old Yvette Brock.
It's just another example of what they could have done, what they should have done, but what they didn't do.
And Ontario's outbreaks continue. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
British Columbia is aiming to get the first COVID-19 doses into all long-term care homes by the end of the week. And not just for the elderly. BC is one of a few provinces where some family visitors are also getting the shot. Tanya Fletcher now on why that policy is so important to so many.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
This is what relief looks like.
And you're done.
And what hope sounds like. Needles into the arms of the most vulnerable, the elderly. And protecting them means also protecting those around them, including family members who provide critical care. Jody Vance is one of them.
It felt like the beginning of the end of this nightmare for so many of us.
Her 82-year-old father is in this long-term care home with late-stage Alzheimer's. Over the course of the pandemic, Vance has had to drive him to emergency cancer surgeries. She was given essential caregiver status, and with it, a life-changing moment in the form of a recent phone call.
Saturday night at 5:45, I'm never going to forget. It kind of was a little bit surreal over the time period between the call and actually coming here. It felt like hope.
In BC, religious leaders can also qualify as essential visitors. It's up to the discretion of individual care homes to make that essential designation. And care home operators say the more help, the better.
And because of staffing levels, this gives us that extra layer of assistance. So they are doing things like maybe with feeding or mobility, and that really brings quality of life to their loved one. It's so critical.
As critical as those connections are, many are still waiting just to see their loved ones, let alone get the vaccine.
Mom has gotten much worse.
Niovi Patsikakis hasn't seen her mother in a month. Visits at that care home were halted in the fall when it was hit with repeated outbreaks. She's been trying unsuccessfully to get the essential designation ever since.
It's very frustrating, but I'm trying to be optimistic.
Meanwhile, BC's target is to get the first doses into all care homes by the end of the week. And for families still waiting on the outside, the need to reunite is as critical as the vaccine itself. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
As just so many people in this country wait for the vaccine, the soldier in charge of the federal vaccination effort gave an update on the Pfizer-BioNTech delay today, starting with a pretty disappointing number.
0 this week. 79,000 following week. Don't know what the fourth week looks like. So I guess we'll wait and see and confirm what those numbers look like.
So deliveries have been disrupted because of upgrades to the Pfizer plant in Belgium. The Prime Minister says He spoke with the CEO of Pfizer and confirmed Canada will receive 4 million doses by the end of March. Some provinces are already warning that vaccination appointments may have to be cancelled in the coming weeks.
Manitobans, except those in the hard-hit north, will see a loosening of restrictions this Saturday, with some visitors allowed in homes and stores able to start selling non-essential goods. Even so, Premier Brian Pallister urges caution.
We don't want this to be a yo-yo effect where we're able to give you some freedoms back and then have to, because of increasing COVID numbers, have to take them away later. That's not the goal.
Now, Manitoba has seen a decline since the holidays, though 198 new infections were reported today. Still, that's less than half the December peak, and its 7-day rolling average is holding generally steady in the 170 range. In neighboring Saskatchewan, the virus remains a serious threat, though we did see a slight downtick in case numbers. Public health officials are reporting 227 new cases there today. The province has said it wants that number to stay under 300 a day on average if they're to avoid further restrictions. The 7-day rolling average there, just below that threshold, with cases dropping a bit over the past week. But one bad sign from the province today, it set a new single-day record for the number of reported deaths, 13. And the province is also in shock after the COVID-19 death of a popular sportscaster. As Bonnie Allen explains, some hope that will be seen as a wake-up call.
I don't know what to say. This is the third partner I've driven out of here. Yeah.
For more than 3 decades, people of Saskatchewan have counted on beloved sportscaster Warren Woods for colorful stories about our favorite teams.
He would retell these stories in such a wonderful way that would make you feel like you were there and leave you laughing and leaving you feeling lighter.
The vibrant 66-year-old's death from COVID-19 stunning this small province. Tributes are pouring in.
So there's the kids that he was affecting, their parents, their grandparents, because of course there's no social media back in the day, and the only way to get your local sports was to tune in at night.
Former co-host Craig Adams says he spoke to his friend the day he went into hospital in late November.
It was, hey, can you go get my truck? It's at the hospital, because he drove himself to the hospital, and I said, yeah, I'll go pick it up, and I got it detailed for him, and he was going to pick it up a few days later.
Instead, he was soon put on life support.
The virus does not really care about what your status in society is.
With cases dangerously high, Saskatoon ICU Dr. Hassan Masri wants tighter restrictions. He's disturbed by this video and recent outbreaks at bars.
I've always, for many months now, have called on the government of Saskatchewan to close all bars, pubs, and nightclubs.
The province is still banking on compliance.
What we need is everyone to follow the measures that are in place.
Now, friends of this fun-loving man also urging people to stay home.
When it hits close to home, you start to pay a lot more attention.
If there's any silver lining in any of this, and in talking with his daughter and his son, it's that, you know, it's a reminder to people that COVID is real, and for people to be careful out there.
Was a golden opportunity.
Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Regina.
Nearly 2 years after being grounded, Boeing's 737 MAX aircraft returned to Canadian skies. That is WestJet Flight 155 landing in Vancouver this morning. On board 71 passengers, including executives from the Calgary-based airline. Transport Canada grounded the planes after deadly crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia. Air Canada is expected to resume flying its 737 MAXs next month. And a blow to a Nunavut community. A fire at a grocery store prompted a brief state of emergency in Igloolik. It's over now, but the co-op, one of only 2 grocery outlets in the town of 1,600, is gutted. Officials say they are working to ensure key community services like fuel delivery and banking remain intact. But a new store could take over a year to build, meaning layoffs could be coming for many staff. So let's turn to D.C., where on his first full day in the new job, President Joe Biden began tackling some enormous problems, including introducing new COVID-19 rules that will affect Canadians. Here's Katie Simpson with the details.
And so begins a presidency where leading by example is a key strategy.
The new president's first full day in office began with a physically distanced, mask-on, virtual prayer service. It's the behavior Joe Biden hopes to inspire as he tries to blunt the raging pandemic.
Let me be very clear. Things are going to continue to get worse before they get better.
Biden signed a series of executive orders detailing his plans to improve testing, implement new masking rules, and to launch a coordinated national vaccination strategy. He also announced additional requirements for international travelers, which includes Canadians.
Everyone flying to the United States from another country will need to test before they get on that plane, before they depart, and quarantine when they arrive in America.
Canadians should also expect changes at land border crossings. Biden's plan calls for immediate outreach to the governments of Canada and Mexico to come up with appropriate public health measures at land ports of entry. CBC News has learned Ottawa was given a heads up about the proposals during a high-level staff call between the Trudeau government and the Biden administration. And it's expected to come up again tomorrow during a scheduled call between the president and the prime minister. It's all part of Biden's strategy to boost public confidence in the government's response to the pandemic.
One of the things that we're going to do is to be completely transparent, open, and honest.
After serving on President Donald Trump's coronavirus task force, Dr. Anthony Fauci welcomed the new administration's tone and its promise to take politics out of the pandemic.
If things go wrong, not point fingers, but to correct them and to make everything we do be based on science and evidence.
So, Katie, what more do we know about these new U.S. travel restrictions?
We're still waiting for specifics about quarantine times. The Centers for Disease Control recommends a 10-day isolation period. Now, remember, Canadians have already been urged by the government to avoid non-essential travel to the United States. But authorities here have been pretty lax in some cases about enforcing the rules, especially at airports. It's been very willy-nilly. Now, from everything I understand about what's happening behind the scenes in Ottawa, the Trudeau government is likely to support these new rules. They've had a hard time convincing snowbirds to stay home, and this may help. Adrian.
All right, thank you for this. Katie Simpson in Washington tonight. Now, the new travel rules are just the latest Biden policy to affect people on this side of the border. After the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, TC Energy says it is cutting more than 1,000 positions.
Imagine if this was something affecting Bombardier or the Ontario auto sector or the Atlantic Canadian fisheries sector. I don't think the federal government would surrender without even trying to put up a fight.
Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says the move is a gut punch for the industry.
Okay, so we will have more on the political fallout of the Governor General's resignation,
the damage done to the office and the government. The At Issue crew is here with a whole lot to say about that.
As Canadians await the approval of more vaccines, we'll take a closer look at the differences.
Some vaccines are better in subpopulations than others. That's a possibility that we're all aware of.
And Amanda Gorman's words echoed across the mall yesterday.
We've learned that quiet isn't always peace.
How those words are being embraced by teachers and kids today. We're back in 2.
It was 6 months ago that CBC News first reported on allegations of a toxic work environment at Rideau Hall. Since then, more than 20 sources have spoken to us about an atmosphere of bullying and harassment fueled by Julie Payette and her second-in-command and best friend, Assunta Di Lorenzo. 2 days after our first report, the Privy Council office ordered an independent review of the claims. At the time, Payette tweeted that she was deeply concerned about the reports and welcomed the review. Weeks later, the Prime Minister continued to praise her.
Governor General has a long and successful role as a scientist, as an astronaut. We will wait for the reviewer to do their work.
That review is now complete. Its contents reportedly scathing. Late this afternoon, Payette resigned as Governor General, effective immediately. So for more on this, let's bring in At Issue. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. Good to see everybody. Okay, I sort of tried to lay out sort of how this has unfolded from the beginning of our reporting to now. Maybe we'll just get everybody's reaction. Chantal, I'll start with you.
Not surprising, probably a big sigh of relief, the second this week on Parliament Hill and in Liberal offices. And I suspect a lot of the damage to the Prime Minister for making that choice was already baked in before the resignation.
Do you agree with that, Andrew, that the Prime Minister, any questions he had around the vetting and the choice of this candidate are over, or are there still things to be asked?
I think that those questions should be asked with a great more vigor at this point. Much of this has been reported in the CBC and elsewhere was known beforehand, or should have been known by any competent vetting process. So either they didn't do the vetting and just appointed her because wouldn't it be neat to have an astronaut, or they did know about it and thought they could shuffle through. You know, take your pick which you think is more likely. But in either case, it reflects poorly on the decision makers in question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on paper, you know, she looks pretty fantastic, but you know, some of Ashley's reporting, my colleague's reporting, also showed that she got a severance package from another organization and left under bad terms. So, I mean, there was obviously some sort of issue, Althea, with the vetting or lack thereof.
Yeah, the government won't acknowledge that is the case. I think the good thing for the Prime Minister's office is this did not happen next week when the House of Commons is sitting. I still expect that the opposition will ask a lot of questions that should be asked, frankly. It seems that even during that meeting between the Prime Minister and the Governor General, she refused to acknowledge that she had any responsibility with what happened at Rideau Hall, that she acknowledged that people felt that there had been wrongdoing, but not that there had been wrongdoing. And in her letter, she makes no mention of any personal responsibility. She does not accept personal responsibility. She seems to lay the blame for the wrongdoing at the foot of the office of her secretary.
There's a larger context to this as well, I think, which is how seriously do we treat the position of the Governor General? This is not the first time that we've had inappropriate or not particularly stellar appointments to the Governor General's job. And it's treated as if it's some kind of, I don't know, a fun patronage post. It's a position that's not only one of considerable symbolic importance, but potentially great decision-making authority. We've had occasions in recent years in this country where the Governor General might be called upon to decide who forms the government and who might have to disregard the advice of her First Minister in the process. If a Prime Minister was defeated in the House shortly after an election and then said, well, we're not going to allow anybody else to form a government, we're going to call fresh elections.
But you're not doing that in a vacuum. Like, you're not walking into a room and expecting to be a constitutional lawyer. You have advisors around you. So is the issue that this was the wrong person, that we're getting trapped into like celebrity appointments for the GG, Chantal?
No, it's kind of a mix. And part of the problem is that Andrew is totally right about the responsibilities and the importance of the role in certain circumstances. And yes, there is a support system. But where there is a disconnect, it's between the daily life of a Governor General, which I have to say is pretty social and not terribly interesting, and a lot of them have testified to that, and those rare moments where you are important. I don't think Julie Payette, forget vetting and everything, which I believe failed. I don't think that she was suited for the job. I don't think she knew what she was signing up for. And she didn't like it.
How hard could it be to find someone who is respectful to employees and is smart enough to do the job? I mean, that doesn't seem like a really high bar.
A lot of people who are competent are respectful of employees. This is a one case of something. But a lot of people who are competent and have achieved a lot in life do not want to be Governor General.
Can I just say, Rosemary, just one other thing is, yes, the Governor General has experts to advise him or her, but he or she has to be able to carry the confidence of the public in a situation like that. Imagine if the Governor General had to go against an elected Prime Minister in some kind of crisis like that. You would want somebody where the public said, look, I respect and admire that person, and I'm going to stick with the duly constituted constitutional authority against what would be effectively a rogue Prime Minister. You need somebody who can command the public's confidence in that situation.
And that's what you're talking about, Althea, when we look back at Michaëlle Jean, which she had to do in 2008 with Stephen Harper. You have to wear that and then convince people it is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. I think in some ways, a lot of the issues that have bubbled up over the past few years make you wonder if the Prime Minister's office is really taking the time to understand whether the people it is appointing to certain positions really are well suited for the positions. Not just that they like the image of them and the idea of them in these positions, but that the culture around the position suits them. So Julie Payette is a prime example, but also Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott. Clearly, Jane Philpott did not know what it was like to live in a partisan caucus and what the expectations of caucus life are.
You should have seen Andrew's face when you mentioned Jane Philpott. I'm not even going to let him open that can of worms.
No, don't.
Okay, last word, Chantal. Last word.
If I can just mention what Althea said, also applies, I suspect, to Senate appointments.
Right. Okay,
yes,
listen, let's take a short break because a lot more happened this week, including this story, a reaction to Joe Biden's decision to cancel Keystone XL.
This decision by the new president yesterday was a direct attack on the vital economic interests of Canada.
Ottawa's response versus that of Alberta. That's coming up next. Just hours after being sworn into office, President Biden turned his campaign promise to cancel Keystone XL into a reality, revoking the pipeline's permit through executive order, a move that left Canadian officials disappointed.
We respect that decision.
We have to accept that and move forward.
And left Alberta's premier calling for a response.
The government of Canada must impose meaningful trade and economic sanctions.
All right, lucky us, another round of that issue. It's been a busy week. So Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, let's do a quick go-round on this one. Andrew, I'm going to start with you and this call by the Premier for sanctions. Does this seem reasonable and something that should be considered?
No. I think somewhere in between the Prime Minister's position, which was, oh, well, better next time, and Mr. Kenney's call for sort of nuclear trade war is, I think, the more sensible ground. We are not going to change this ruling by that. Certainly by that means anytime we get into a trade war with the United States, we're lucky to emerge with our limbs intact.
But Althea, haven't we done everything that we could do on this file? I mean, the administration is a lot of people from the last one that killed it the first time. I just don't know what else could be done.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think more could have been done to signal the government's full interest and adoration for this project, and putting other priorities aside to focus with its talk with the Biden administration or incoming Biden administration on this issue. But to me, still surprising that Jason Kenney, while this election was happening, decided to invest $1.5 billion of taxpayers' money and $6.5 billion in loan guarantees on a project that seemed like it was doomed to fail. Yeah. Apparently, this evening, during the Premier's call, Alberta, so Kenney, Moe, and even Ford were arguing in favor of tariffs. This is not going to happen. And the government's point of view is like the only reason they used it with Donald Trump was because it really was the nuclear option, that they want to move forward on things that they can do together, especially on climate change. And that's where they're going.
Chantal.
First point, public opinion in this country and the relief that has been caused by the departure of Donald Trump would not in any way, shape, or form be conducive to Justin Trudeau declaring a trade war on the Biden team on day one. Yeah. That's not going to happen. And if it were to happen, the government that would go down that road. And I noticed that I've been reading all the statements from Erin O'Toole. I have not yet seen him echo this call for sanctions. Maybe it's coming, or maybe I missed a press release. But the other thing, I think, picking up on Althea's point, I think Joe Biden did a service to Justin Trudeau. Yes. It's called ripping the Band-Aid. You can do it slowly. It's going to hurt for a long time. You can do it quickly. And if he was going to do that, and no president is going to reverse himself on something he did on day one that fulfilled the promise.
Yeah, and do it before an election for Justin Trudeau, where he may have to defend himself. It also puts Jason Kenney, Andrew, in this weird position where he's calling for sanctions and then somehow suddenly promoting Justin Trudeau's climate plan as the reason why the pipeline should go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow that at all. I don't think a Prime Minister Kenney would be launching trade sanctions as a result of this, because you have, if you're in that position, you have to take a broader outlook than just what's good for the Premier, I should say, of Alberta. But I understand his frustration. This project has been looked at any number of times in the U.S. itself. And in a way, both Premier Kenney and some of the project's most fervent opponents exaggerate the stakes here. The oil sands are not going to live or die depending on whether Keystone itself gets built, and neither would Keystone in itself, destroy the environment. The oil is going to get to market one way or another. If it doesn't do so by means of the Keystone pipeline, it will do so in other ways.
So this is it. We just sort of say okay and move on. Is that sort of where this is going?
I expect the Prime Minister to raise it in his first phone conversation with President Biden. I expect to see it in the debrief. I'm not sure I expect to see it ever again.
Okay, smart, all of you. Thank you. Appreciate this and appreciate you pivoting subjects, given it's been such a busy news day. Thank you. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast. We've got extra content there. This week, we're talking about Conservative MP Derek Sloan, who was voted out of caucus. Yeah, that happened this week too. Look for it on any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational. And now, back to Andrew and Adrian in Toronto.
Okay, thanks, Rosie. Canada is getting ready to approve more vaccines.
So, will there come a time when we can choose which one we want? Next, we will take a closer look at the differences between the doses. Plus,
For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
She skyrocketed to international fame in an instant. Amanda Gorman's message and how it's being received. Welcome back. Despite delivery delays of Pfizer BioNTech vaccines, the federal government says it's still confident Canada will be fully vaccinated this year, partially because Ottawa bought into so many. Only 2 have been authorized by Health Canada, of course, Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna, but 5 more are under consideration. These other 5 candidates still awaiting authorization. But experts say 2 of those vaccines are nearing the finish line. And as Christine Birak tells us, that has some folks hoping they'll have some choice when it's their turn to get the shot.
We need to get these vaccines rolled out as soon as possible.
Retired Canadian steelworker John Pittman admits he's no scientist, but he's read some vaccines might offer better protection for older people, so he'd like a choice.
If they do get the approval for the AstraZeneca, then I would just wait for that.
In a few months, he might have that option.
So that's the next one down the pipeline, and that actually has a better cold storage, or it doesn't require any special storage.
And the doses can be given up to 3 months apart. It's one of 2 DNA vaccines on the horizon.
The next one down the pipeline is the J&J or Janssen vaccine, which is a single vaccine.
That's a game changer. 1 dose could be rolled out in doctors' offices and pharmacies. In the U.S., Johnson & Johnson could apply for emergency approval as early as February. Health Canada isn't offering any timelines, but a member of Canada's COVID-19 vaccine task force had this estimate.
I think we should start to see the results of the AstraZeneca phase 3 trial in about 2 to 4 weeks. And I would say probably the same with the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine.
Other vaccines are still in the works, including Novavax. Unlike the mRNA and DNA vaccines that offer the body genetic instructions to build that outer spike protein, Novavax uses a lab-made version of that spike, similar to a flu shot, to show the immune system a piece of the invader.
Some vaccines are better in subpopulations than others. That's a possibility that we're all aware of.
Scientists will need more data to figure that out, but once supplies of approved vaccines increase, Canadians might be able to choose which one they get.
It would be great if we had a choice, but I really think the impetus really now is to get that population immunity.
Pittman wants a choice, but adds he'd likely take any shot just to see his grandchildren again. Christine Birak, CBC News, Hamilton.
Coming up next, poet Amanda Gorman has become a best-selling author overnight after her inauguration appearance yesterday. How people here are taking her words to heart. Stay with us.
I'm
I'm Jamie Poisson, and tomorrow on CBC's daily news podcast Front Burner, in the wake of a scathing report into the toxic work environment at Rideau Hall, Governor General Julie Payette steps down. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one.
Well, one day after making history, the youngest presidential inaugural poet can add another line to that resume. Best-selling author 22-year-old Amanda Gorman captured the world's attention when she recited that poem, The Hill We Climb. Well, today, her upcoming collections of poems, which are not even published yet, are the most in-demand books on Amazon. Tashana Reid has the story of a new star and how she is inspiring people in this country.
We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is.
On one of the biggest stages in the world, Amanda Gorman delivered more than just words. For many, she delivered hope.
Where can we find light
The
in
22-year-old Harvard grad and activist says she was struggling to finish her speech for the Biden-Harris inauguration when the siege happened on Capitol Hill.
What it did is it energized me even more to believe that much more firmly in a message of hope and unity and healing.
Her words resonated around the world. Pre-orders for her 2 new books skyrocketed. More than 4 million people followed her on Twitter and Instagram, and she attracted even more famous fans. Oprah, already an admirer, gifted her that incredible ring. Canadians, too, connected with Gorman's message. Ontario English teacher Doreen Bonsu was so impressed she discussed Gorman's poem with her high school students.
I think for my students, when they see Amanda, I hope they can also see themselves.
Bonsu says this year they've had discussions around racism and inequality, and most recently the siege on Capitol Hill.
And a lot of my students were feeling frustrated, they were surprised, they were anxious. And it's really neat to see how now, after reading the poem, there's a sense of hope and unity.
Ashwin Jaswal was in her class today.
It was super inspiring. It felt like one day I could be up there.
You deserve more than a poem. And
Nisha Patel, Edmonton's poet laureate, says Gorman's work reflects an exciting time for a new, diverse generation of authors whose predecessors had been stifled.
What we're seeing is that realization is coming to light, and that possibility is so endless.
She says there are many young voices like Amanda Gorman's, just waiting for a chance to be heard.
For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, Amanda Gorman certainly made an impact in Washington yesterday, but there is another lasting image. Why Senator Bernie Sanders is appearing in the most unusual places. Tonight's moment is next. For most American voters, yesterday's inauguration marked the end of a chaotic chapter and the start of a brand new, if not more traditional, presidency. So 24 hours later, maybe it should come as no surprise that the moment that's taken on a life of its own was perhaps the dullest one of all. So of course, it's our moment tonight. So that, of course, is Senator Bernie Sanders, the man who fought Biden for his party's top job. But on this day, that body language, the kind that screams, "Don't we all have work to do?" it caught fire online. And who knew that dissatisfied demeanor would fit so well in so many situations, in places high and low, even those magical spaces we can only dream of. And consider those mittens, Insta-famous. As it happens, they were a gift from a second-grade teacher in his home state of Vermont, who, by the way, could make a killing on these things, but won't.
I gave those mittens to Bernie as a gift, and I think it's beautiful that they've gone so far.
Sanders' own reaction to his umpteenth moment in the spotlight, understated.
You know, in Vermont, we know something about the cold.
Makes sense, even if none of this actually does. Not that we wouldn't welcome him
anytime
once restrictions lift, of course. But yeah, so wild, weird, wonderful world out there. Shout out to Luis Lopez, part of our Vancouver team, who did that last shot up there together. But who would have thought that's the moment that came out of
Well,
yesterday?
this is the world we're in right now. There is, of course, an app for that. Apparently, there's a link you can follow. You can put Bernie really wherever you want to.
That's right.
The internet is often a terrible place, and sometimes it's just ridiculous enough to be fun. That is a national for Thursday, January 21st.
Good night.